Welcome to BL Stories, where romance, drama, and unforgettable boys' love come to life. Love knows no limits, and the best stories aren't always straight. Subscribe now and join our growing BL-loving family. Chapter 13. Jackson's POV. It had been days, maybe even weeks, since I last saw Ben. He's all I can think about, him and the baby. I keep hoping they're safe. I still can't understand why I can't communicate with my mate. What could my father have done to block that bond? I don't even know where he brought me. He owns several remote properties across Sylvan Ash territory, and for all I know, I could be trapped in some deserted mountain cabin far from anyone who could help. I glanced at the small cot in the corner of the cell. That's where she was, the girl my father brought in last night. She looked to be around my age. He claimed she was my true mate, insisting that I needed to forget about Ben and accept her instead. The idea alone made no sense. Nobody can choose a mate. That's not how it works, and he knows it. He told me her name is Beth, though I'm not sure how he even got that information. She was too frightened to speak when he dragged her in here. She cried for hours before finally falling asleep. None of this is her fault. She didn't do anything to deserve being pulled into my father's schemes. She shouldn't have to pretend to be something she's not, just like I shouldn't have to pretend my mate isn't Ben. She looked small and fragile, almost reminding me of Ben in a painful way, quiet, vulnerable, and alone. And because my father is involved, I know she'll need someone to protect her. I'll do everything I can to make sure she doesn't get hurt. Beth stirred on the cot. She sat up slowly, looking around in confusion before releasing a quiet, frightened sound. "It's all right," I said gently as I stepped toward her. But my presence only seemed to scare her more. She pressed herself back against the wall, shaking. I stopped several feet away so I wouldn't overwhelm her. "I'm sorry," I added softly. "Why am I here?" she whispered. Her eyes shifted around the room, searching for answers. "The Alpha said I'm your mate. Is that true?" I hesitated before speaking. "No," I said quietly. "I'm sorry he involved you in this. I'm going to do everything I can to help you get out of here. I promise." She nodded slowly. Now that she was fully awake, I could see her better. Her hair was a dusty blonde, similar to Liam's. Liam. I just hoped my father hadn't dragged him into this too. He needs to stay off my father's radar, or he'll discover his secret as well. I can only hope Liam is being careful. "Why has he done this?" Beth asked, pulling me out of my thoughts. She watched me with wide, worried eyes. Should I tell her the truth? She deserved some explanation, considering the danger she was in. But how would she react? I took a breath. "My mate," I paused. Her eyebrows rose slightly. "He's a man. My father doesn't approve." She blinked, absorbing the information. I expected shock or disapproval, but instead her face softened. That's really unfair," she said quietly. "I'm so sorry. Is he okay?" "I don't know," I admitted, my voice wavering. "I can't reach him. But I know he's alive. I would feel it if he weren't." She nodded. "Could it be?" She stopped and fidgeted nervously with her hands. She looked like she wasn't sure if she should speak. "What is it?" I asked gently. "It's probably nothing," she murmured, shaking her head. "What were you thinking?" I pressed. She hesitated, then whispered, "Maybe wolf's bane? I've heard it can interfere with a wolf's abilities." Of course. Wolf's bane. The realization hit me so hard I felt cold. Why hadn't I thought of that sooner? There wasn't any here, I could smell that much, so it had to be around Ben. My father must be using it to block our bond. The thought made my stomach twist. If Ben was being exposed to wolf's bane, how much pain was he in? And the baby, could the baby survive that? I had no answers, and the uncertainty nearly tore me apart. "I'm sorry," Beth whispered, probably noticing the distress on my face. "No. Don't apologize," I said, shaking my head. I needed to get to Ben. And I needed to make sure Beth stayed safe while I figured out how. Chapter 14. Benjamin's POV. I had long lost track of time. Days, weeks, maybe even months had passed. All I knew was that the alpha seemed determined to punish me simply for existing. I hung suspended from the ceiling by metal cuffs, my arms stretched above me. My body ached from exhaustion, and the restraints bit into my skin, but I knew the physical pain was only one part of what he intended. The alpha stood a few feet away, holding a whip in his hand. My heartbeat quickened. He dipped the whip into a nearby bucket filled with a strange liquid. I didn't recognize the scent, but I had noticed it ever since he brought me to this place. He approached slowly, eyes dark and unyielding. The whip glistened with the mysterious substance, and I felt exposed and defenseless. I couldn't shield my stomach, not that he knew the secret I carried. I wasn't showing yet, and I silently thanked the moon goddess he hadn't realized I was expecting a child. Jackson's child. The alpha paced around me like a predator studying its prey. My muscles tightened. I knew what was coming. The first strike landed with a sharp crack. The impact stung deeply, and despite trying to remain composed, tears burned behind my eyes. A second strike followed, and I couldn't stop the tears from falling. I gritted my teeth, willing myself not to break, even as the alpha gave a low, cruel laugh. "You deserve this," he said coldly. "You're nothing." His words struck harder than any blow. Part of me believed him. Part of me feared he was right, that I wasn't worthy of Jackson or the life growing inside me. I tried to stay conscious, but the world blurred at the edges. My thoughts drifted in and out, and with every sharp sound, I saw something else, a memory or perhaps a vision. A young boy. The same child I had dreamt of before, the one with soft brown curls and gentle gray eyes. Another echoing crack. Suddenly we were in the meadow again. Sunlight. Warmth. The boy smiling as I knelt before him. Another strike. Tears streamed down my face, not from pain this time, but from something tender and overwhelming. The boy gently wiped the tears away before picking a flower. Another strike. He tucked the flower behind my ear. I managed a small smile. Another. He ran ahead, laughing, looking back at me with bright eyes. I chased after him through the tall grass, feeling lighter than I had felt in so long. Running with him felt like freedom, like hope. In that place, I wasn't afraid. Nothing could hurt me. Reality snapped back when my body dropped to the cold stone floor. My vision blurred, and I could only make out the alpha's silhouette as he approached with the bucket. He poured the liquid over me, and it stung sharply wherever my skin had been hurt. I gasped and curled in on myself, trying to breathe through the shock. Then, finally, he left. The silence that followed was a small relief. I lay on the floor, trembling and exhausted, trying to hold on to anything that felt safe. And then, I saw the boy again. He seemed to be reaching out to me, calling me toward him. I lifted my hand, trying to touch him, needing comfort, needing hope. Everything faded into darkness. Chapter 15. Jackson's POV. My anxiety grew with each passing day. I felt time slipping away, and I feared I wasn't reaching Ben soon enough. I didn't know exactly how long had passed, but I knew it wouldn't be long before he started showing signs of the pregnancy, if he wasn't already. My father couldn't find out. He had been counting on a bond to form between Beth and me as mates. But it wouldn't happen. We weren't mates. Not even the alpha could force that. His last visit had been brutal. He was losing patience with me, and I knew what he expected from Beth, an heir to the alpha line, any day now. The thought only confirmed what I already feared. My father had lost all sense. To expect me to have a child with someone who wasn't my mate was completely unthinkable. I had shielded Beth during the last confrontation, taking every blow myself so she would remain safe. As the heir to an alpha, I healed faster than most, so I wasn't worried about my own injuries, but Ben wouldn't be able to recover so quickly. His abilities as an Omega were not as strong as mine. Now, I sat on the cot, Beth behind me, tending to my wounds with my dampened shirt. She looked guilty, worried that I had taken the brunt of the punishment. But her guilt could never match mine. She had no business being caught up in this. "Jackson," she began softly. I looked back at her over my shoulder. "Do you think, if we could convince him, he'd let you be alpha?" I knew what she meant. If I became alpha, I would have power beyond my father's reach. But convincing him would be impossible while Beth remained uninvolved in his plans, or more importantly, if she wasn't carrying a child. That seemed to be his only concern. Before I could answer, I felt it, the unmistakable pull of my father's pheromones growing stronger. He was close, and I knew that at his proximity, I would be too weakened to resist. I stepped in front of Beth instinctively, shielding her as he appeared on the other side of the iron bars, hands in his pockets. "You thought I wouldn't find out about your little secret?" he said, eyes locked on me. My stomach dropped. "This is why your mate remains barren, isn't it? You think you can have an heir from that?" "Father, please," I whispered. "Jackson, that is not your mate. Beth will bear your child, not him," he barked. "Father, please." "Not my baby," I begged, feeling Beth tense behind me. "I've already taken care of your little problem, son." My blood ran cold at his words. Atlas stirred within me, threatening to take over, ready to fight. "And, in case you think you can keep delaying," he continued, glancing at Beth before tossing a small object through the bars. It rolled across the floor, stopping at my feet. My hands trembled as I picked it up. It was small, curved, and stained. The familiar scent of blood made my heart shatter. Ben's toenail. This monster had not only harmed my child but had tortured my mate in unimaginable ways. Atlas surged forward within me, growling and straining against the restraints. All I could think about was protecting Beth, saving Ben, and punishing my father. Pain shot through me as he reinforced his hold, forcing me to stagger. I gritted my teeth. "Fight me, like a real alpha," I growled, though the words barely escaped through the haze of agony and fury. My father laughed. "That weakling you call an omega is nothing. You'll thank me one day for this, son," he sneered, walking away. Even as he left, the weight of his influence lingered, and I struggled to regain control. Hours passed, or maybe only moments, but clarity finally returned. Beth had been right. I had to convince him, for Ben's sake. I could not challenge my father in my current state. But if I played along, if I let him believe I had accepted Beth as my mate, I could gain the strength and position I needed. I looked at Beth, and her expression mirrored my own resolve. We just had to convince him. And once we did, his position, his power, would be mine. Chapter 16. Jackson's POV. After our decision, Beth and I began acting differently whenever my father was nearby. We spoke more gently to each other, stayed close, and behaved like the bonded pair he wanted us to be. It seemed to please him, at least on the surface. Maybe, just maybe, our plan was working. We were currently lying on the small cot, my arm around her while she rested her head on my chest. It was an act, one we had rehearsed silently with every shared glance. Father would be checking on us soon. Lately, he had been watching more closely than ever, almost as if he expected us to slip up. And I refused to let that happen. Despite the circumstances, Beth and I had grown close in our own way, not romantically, but as allies. Being forced into survival together created a quiet understanding between us. She cared deeply for Ben, just as I did, and that alone gave us common purpose. We both knew the truth. We would do whatever it took to save him. I sensed my father approaching long before his steps reached us. The familiar pressure of his presence filled the air. Beth and I pretended to sleep, breathing evenly as he stood over us. After a few tense moments, he let out a satisfied sigh and walked away. Only when his presence faded did I finally exhale. "He's gone," I whispered. Beth pushed herself up with a relieved breath. "Do you think it's working?" she asked quietly. "I don't know," I admitted. "I think he's waiting for," she began. "We can convince him without that," I said firmly, cutting her off. Her eyes lowered, uncertainty clouding them. "I'm not sure we can. If we could, wouldn't we have succeeded by now?" She took a shaky breath. "You need to become alpha, Jackson. I'm starting to think this may be the only way." I rubbed my forehead, struggling with the truth of her words. My father had made his expectations painfully clear, and I knew time was running out. I had to reach Ben. And if this was the only path, then I had no choice. Beth noticed my inner conflict and placed a gentle hand on my arm. "It's okay," she whispered. "I know you don't want this. But if it means protecting the people you love, then we can do what we must." She was right. I had to become alpha, for Ben's safety, for our future, and for the child we had already lost. "You're right," I whispered back. The dread between us was unmistakable. "We should get it over with," she said softly, lying back down. But she didn't mean intimacy. Not the real kind. What we needed was something simpler, something that would satisfy my father's expectations just enough to deceive him. A staged moment. A believable closeness. A scent he would recognize. So, we did the only thing we could. We held each other, kept our bodies close, and created the illusion father needed to smell on us. It was uncomfortable and tense, but necessary. All the while, I forced my thoughts toward the person I truly loved, Ben. His brown curls. His bright smile. The warmth of his laugh. The steady comfort of his presence. His gentle hands. The way he made me feel seen. The way my heart softened every time he looked at me. Thinking of him grounded me, even through the discomfort of our plan. When it was over and the moment of performance passed, Beth and I sat up in silence, both of us exhausted in a different way. "You okay?" I asked gently. She nodded. "Yeah, I'm all right. You?" "I'm fine," I replied, even though my chest felt tight. We redressed and settled back onto the cot, positioning ourselves in a way that would continue the illusion if father returned overnight. Sleep did not come easily. I lay awake for a long time, my thoughts spiraling toward Ben, toward the baby we lost, toward the fears I carried, toward the rage that simmered beneath everything. The proof of Ben's suffering haunted me. My father would pay for what he had done. I would make sure of it. I awoke to the sound of his footsteps. Father stepped out of the shadows, watching us from the other side of the bars. Beth stirred as I tightened my arm around her. His eyes narrowed as he took in the scene, his expression calculating. He inhaled slowly. "Well," he said at last, "it seems you've finally come to your senses, Jackson." Atlas growled in my mind, but outwardly I stayed composed. How could he tell? And then I realized, Beth's scent had shifted. It was faint but noticeable. The illusion had worked. My father believed exactly what we needed him to believe. Beth blinked awake, saw him, and tensed. I pulled her closer and pressed a small, gentle kiss to the top of her head, the kind of gesture my father expected. "I'm doing what's best for the pack," I said evenly. He smiled, satisfied. "Very good." And then he left. As soon as he was gone, Beth sat up and turned to me, her eyes wide. "It worked," she whispered. I nodded. She covered her mouth with both hands, relief overwhelming her. "Just hold on, Ben. I'm coming for you." Chapter 17. Jackson's POV. Once my father seemed convinced that Beth and I were truly bonded, he allowed us to return to the Alpha's mansion. But being home didn't mean we were free. We were still under his control, still being watched, still performing a role we never asked to play. Through it all, Ben never left my thoughts, not for a second. My father had invited Dr. Green and his wife, Eleanor, to stay in one of the guest wings so they could monitor Beth closely. Dr. Green had been the trusted physician of the Sylvan Ash Pack for years. He was gentle, reliable, and calm, qualities that made him a comfort to everyone, especially now. His wife, Eleanor, was just as warm. Sometimes, when they looked at me, I sensed a quiet understanding, or maybe pity. Beth and I walked down the hall toward their rooms for one of her regular checkups. My arm rested around her waist, just as my father expected. Extra guards were everywhere, their presence reminding me that my father's influence stretched into every shadow. When Beth knocked on the door, Eleanor greeted us with her kind smile. The room looked much like a small medical wing, filled with equipment and supplies. As Dr. Green entered, Beth sat on the cushioned lounge, ready for her appointment. "So, how are we feeling today?" he asked, glancing at both of us before focusing on her. "I've been really nauseous," Beth admitted. "Most mornings and sometimes during the day." I had been helping her through each episode, cold cloths, water, steadying her as she leaned over the sink. Every time I sat with her, I thought of Ben. He was the one I should have been supporting through pregnancy, not someone who was forced into this situation alongside me. Beth had learned to smile through it for everyone else. I didn't have the energy to pretend. My eyes had grown distant without Ben. Beth was 4 weeks along, and still nothing had been said about Ben's condition. The silence was making both of us restless. Dr. Green explained gently, "It might still be early to hear a heartbeat, but we should see something today." Eleanor spread gel on Beth's lower stomach, and Dr. Green began moving the ultrasound wand. "Here we are," he said softly. "There's the baby." A small white shape flickered on the screen. The image hit me harder than I expected. This was biologically my child, yet seeing it only deepened the ache in my chest. I never got to see my baby with Ben. That moment was taken from us before it could ever happen. Emotion overwhelmed me, and I quietly stepped out of the room. At the end of the hall, sunlight poured through the tall windows. I paced, breathing deeply, reminding myself not to lose control. I was closer than ever to replacing my father as Alpha. I just needed more time and strength. As I glanced outside, a figure climbed out of a car that had just pulled in. My heart stilled. Liam, my best friend. Alive. Safe, at least for now. He looked up instinctively and froze when he saw me. Our eyes met for the first time since everything changed. Shock flickered across his face. I gave a small nod before heading back to Beth. When I returned, Eleanor was handing Beth a freshly printed ultrasound photo. "Everything okay?" Dr. Green asked. "Yes," I said with a polite smile. "Just needed a moment." "The baby looks healthy," he assured us. "Growing a bit faster than average, which is typical for Alpha children." I gave a small nod, and Beth thanked them before we left. Back in our shared room, a knock sounded almost immediately. One of my father's guards stood outside. "The Alpha requests to see both of you in his office." I closed the door and turned to Beth, who looked anxious. "I'm sure it's nothing," I said, trying, and failing, to convince myself. We walked together, hand in hand, the perfect illusion. Inside my father's office, Liam and Beta Vincent were already waiting. Beth tensed beside me. Liam's eyes darted between us, full of unspoken questions. "Beth is Jackson's mate," my father announced proudly. "She will be Luna of the Sylvan Ash Pack." I introduced her quietly, and she gave the two men a polite smile. "I've gathered you all because there is something important you need to hear," my father said. Beth's hand tightened around mine. Then he delivered the news. "In 3 days we will hold the crowning ceremony. Jackson, you will be named Alpha, and Liam will become Beta." My breath caught. It was finally happening. Our plan had worked. "Just hold on, Ben. I'm coming for you." Chapter 18. Jackson's POV. "Hey, I'd like to talk to you about the ceremony. Care to take a walk?" Liam asked as we left my father's office. I could tell he wasn't asking about the ceremony itself. He wanted to get me away from the Alpha so we could speak freely. I glanced at Beth, walking beside me. Given my father's insistence that she act as my Luna, I felt she would be safe if I stepped away for a while. She smiled up at me and gave a small nod. "I'm just going to relax in the bedroom. I'm a little tired," she said, smiling at Liam. "It was nice meeting you." Liam returned her smile as she headed upstairs. I nodded to Liam toward the back door, and we stepped outside. Silence stretched between us as we made our way through the woods, leaving the mansion behind. Finally, Liam broke the quiet. "Jackson, what's going on?" His voice was tense, urgent. "I haven't seen you in 3 months, and now you show up, looking half dead, with a new mate?" "She's not my mate," I said quickly. He raised an eyebrow, confused. I took a deep breath. My father has kept me locked up all this time, weak so I couldn't fight back. He dragged Beth into this, trying to force us to act like mates. We have to play along so he'll go through with the ceremony. And my voice faltered for a moment. "She's pregnant." Liam froze, eyes wide. "Pregnant?" "Yes." We had no choice. He wouldn't let us leave, and he certainly wouldn't allow me to become Alpha unless she was carrying my heir. I saw him glance at my neck, probably detecting the faint scent of the Alpha's influence. "Where's Ben?" Liam whispered. "I don't know. I know he's alive, but I can't reach him. I think it's Wolf's Bane. Wolf's Bane, terror laced his voice. I nodded. He's doing terrible things to him. He even gave me a part of him as a warning when he told me I had to comply, I said quietly. Liam's face went pale as realization set in. I'll regain my strength before the ceremony, I continued, determination hardening my voice. And once I'm alpha, I'll make sure my father pays for what he's done. Liam placed a hand on my shoulder. Whatever you need, Jackson. We'll get him back. We will, I said firmly. The days leading up to the ceremony were chaotic. My father's men moved his belongings out of the mansion. He probably intended to relocate, but I didn't care to ask. Jackson, my father called as I passed through the kitchen. A chill ran down my spine. He had just finished pouring his coffee and walked toward me. I've arranged for a painter today to create a portrait of you and Beth. The portrait. A tradition of the Sylvan Ash Pack. Every Alpha and Luna had one, and the old portraits hung in the halls, including my parents. I didn't want to do this, but it was part of the game. I had to ensure the ceremony went forward. Okay, sounds good, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. You all right, son? He asked. Yeah, I'm fine, I forced a smile. He nodded and walked away, leaving me to exhale a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Upstairs, I opened our bedroom to find it empty. Then I heard retching from the bathroom. Beth was hunched over the toilet, flushed and pale, hair tied messily atop her head, dark circles under her eyes. You okay? I asked softly, placing a hand on her back. Yeah, just the usual nausea, she whispered. I sighed. She had nothing to do with this, yet her life had changed forever. She was about to become a mother because my father refused to accept my true mate. I should tell you, the painter is coming today, I said. Her eyes widened. She curled into herself on the floor. Today? Just a little while, you'll be fine, I reassured her. She looked up at me with a faint smile. It's not your fault, Jackson. Everything will be okay soon. I nodded. Beth's optimism reminded me of Ben. We got dressed for the portrait. My father had chosen the outfits weeks ago. Beth wore a long, flowing gray dress, while I was in a black suit with a gray tie. She sat gracefully in a modern wingback chair, and I stood behind her, hand resting lightly on her shoulder. Hours passed as the painter worked, capturing us in perfect form. I glanced at the finished piece and felt a pang of disappointment. My eyes looked hollow, and my expression was distant. Beth, too, appeared detached. But this image, like everything else, was for my father, not for us. Finally, we stepped away. Tomorrow I would be alpha, and then I would get my true mate back. Chapter 19. Benjamin's POV. I struggled to breathe as I lay on the cold, stone floor. The only sound was the faint chatter of my teeth in the frigid air. My bones ached from lying on the hard surface, and the meager rations I was given barely kept me alive. Time had lost all meaning. I didn't know how long I had been here. My foot throbbed with pain, crusted in dried blood, much like the rest of my body. I placed a hand over my stomach, feeling the emptiness there. The miscarriage had left me hollow, a pain deeper than anything else I had endured. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you, I whispered, thinking of the child I had lost. The dreams of him had stopped after the miscarriage, but I still imagined him. He didn't even have a name. It's not too late, Ivy, my wolf, whispered in my mind. I hadn't heard him speak much lately. He had taken on at least some of the punishment, shielding me when he could. Ivy was right. I could still honor him. I remembered Jackson's voice in my head. Oh, what about August? I smiled faintly at the memory. August. It was a beautiful name, chosen by Jackson. That would be my angel's name. I closed my eyes, imagining August, brown curls like mine, Jackson's gray eyes. Maybe someday I could hold him, if mercy still existed in this world. The sound of the cell door opening pulled me from my thoughts. My heart raced as the alpha entered. I saw him almost daily, yet fear still gripped me. Stand up, he demanded. It took everything I had to rise to my feet. Pain exploded through my body, and when I stumbled to the floor, he didn't hesitate to punish me further. Blows and kicks rained down, and I blacked out from the pain, only to regain consciousness moments later. He approached, syringe in hand. I had no strength to resist as he injected a cold, burning substance into my veins. Agonizing pain shot through my arm, but I could do nothing. "I don't need you getting in the way today," he said, leaving me broken on the floor. I let the darkness take me, praying for relief. Jackson's POV. Beth was anxious about the ceremony, but I barely noticed. Today was one step closer to Ben. As I dressed, I tucked a small pack of essentials into my ankle, hidden under my dark pants. Gray and black, our uniform for the day. Beth emerged in a flowing gray dress, elegant and soft, the band around her waist highlighting her small bump. "The Alpha picked it," she said quietly. Of course. He wanted to display what he had forced upon us. Through the window, I saw the front lawn filling with members of the pack. The ceremony would take place on the mansion steps, a rare honor for the pack to be so close. I left the window and approached Beth, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "No matter what happens today, stay with Liam," I told her. I hadn't shared my plan with her. She looked up, nervous. "Why?" "Trust me," I said softly. Before she could reply, a knock came at the door. My father entered, announcing, "It's time." I wrapped my arm around Beth's waist as we followed him downstairs. Vincent and Liam were waiting. We lined up behind my father as snow began to fall. Beth and I exchanged a subtle glance with Liam. He understood without words. Beth's eyes widened, silently asking if I knew what I was about to do. My father presented us to the pack. "Alpha Jackson Ward of the Sylvan Ash Pack," he announced, placing the crown on my head. "And Luna Beth Whitlock of the Sylvan Ash Pack," he continued, crowning her. Cheers erupted from the crowd. I guided Beth toward Liam and stepped aside. A deep breath. Everything was in place. Then I moved. My father was still speaking, oblivious. I lunged forward, shifting into my wolf mid-stride. Gasps rang out as my jet-black form landed before him. The pack froze, watching the alpha they had known for years confronted by his true successor. I pinned my father down, subduing him without causing fatal harm, ensuring he would no longer threaten my mate or the pack. The crowd recoiled in shock, children clutching parents, yet no one dared interfere. I turned to the closest guard, voice low but commanding. "Where is my mate?" He stammered, pointing toward Beth, who had huddled near Liam. I grabbed the next guard. "Where is he?" I demanded. "The dungeon, below the prison," he whispered. The rumors were true. That's where Ben was being held. Liam nodded at me, understanding the urgency. Without hesitation, I shifted back into my wolf form and bolted toward the dungeon. "I'm coming, Ben." Chapter 20. Jackson's POV. I pushed my legs as fast as they could carry me, my paws slapping against the hard ground dusted with falling snow. I finally knew where my mate was, and nothing would stand in my way. The prison was close, thankfully, and I needed every second. As I approached the building, I shifted back into human form and quickly tied on the clothes I had kept at my ankle. Bursting through the prison doors, I was met with wide-eyed, startled guards. Word travels fast. I ignored them and sprinted toward the back of the building. The scent of Ben guided me, my mate, my heart. It grew stronger with each step, mingled with the metallic tang of his blood and the bitter trace of wolf's bane. After what felt like endless flights of stairs, I reached a dark, stone-walled hallway and finally found him. Inside a silver-barred cell lay my Ben. My adrenaline surged, and with a strength I hadn't known I had, I ripped the door open. Kneeling beside him, I cradled his fragile form in my arms. He was limp, bruised, and faintly bleeding, but his heartbeat, though weak, was still there. His wrists and body bore the marks of captivity. My heart ached, but I refused to panic. I wrapped him in my shirt, shielding him from the cold. He was smaller than ever, and every inch of him reminded me of how much he had endured. Lifting him carefully, one arm under his legs, the other beneath his back, I dashed up the stairs and out of the prison. The snow underfoot was icy, but I didn't falter. My destination, home, where Dr. Green could help him. The front lawn was empty, the only sign of chaos the streaks of blood on the steps. I rushed inside, past Beth and Liam, who froze in surprise as I sprinted by. I took the stairs 2 at a time, carrying my mate straight to the doctor's wing. I knocked, and practically kicked the door open. Dr. Green and his wife, Eleanor, looked up in shock as I laid Ben on the table. "Please," I said, my voice tight. Without hesitation, they began tending to him. "We'll take care of him, Alpha," Dr. Green assured me. I stepped outside the room and sank to the floor, letting relief wash over me. I had found him. He was going to be okay. Footsteps approached. Liam appeared, worry etched across his face. I pulled him into a tight hug. "How is he?" he asked, concern heavy in his voice. "They're taking care of him now." "It's serious, but he'll recover," I said. Liam rubbed my shoulders in reassurance. "He's going to be okay," he added, and I nodded, grateful. He handed me a shirt and a damp cloth to clean myself, and I took a moment to steady my nerves. Eleanor returned, holding small vials. "Just running some tests," she said before heading back. Minutes later, she came with results. "Alpha," she began, "he's lost a significant amount of blood and needs a transfusion. His blood type is AB positive. We don't have a donor here." "I'm AB positive." Liam interjected immediately. "Take mine." He followed Eleanor into another room while I watched, overwhelmed with gratitude. "You do the same for my mate, Jackson." "It's just a little blood," he said with a reassuring smirk. After Eleanor collected the blood, she returned quickly to administer it to Ben. I paced outside the room, heart hammering, while Liam leaned against the wall silently. Finally, Dr. Green emerged. "He'll be okay, Alpha," he said, and relief flooded through me. "The blood transfusion will help stabilize him." "And?" I urged, my voice barely steady. "His left wrist is broken, and he has 2 fractured ribs. He has some minor injuries to his toes and several lacerations, all treated. His blood contained traces of wolf's bane, which we've begun to neutralize with lycanthropic injections. He'll need follow-up treatment, but he should awaken in a few hours." Dr. Green placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "You reached him just in time, Alpha. Our Luna is safe now." I let the weight of it all settle, the injuries, the suffering, everything my father had done. But no more. I am Alpha now. No one will hurt him again. I stepped into the room, sitting beside the bed. Ben was bandaged, IVs and monitors keeping him stable. He seemed so small, so fragile. I gently took his hand and kissed it softly. "You're safe now, baby," I whispered, leaning my head on his thigh. "You're safe." Chapter 21. Jackson's POV. Evening had fallen, and the sunlight no longer streamed through the windows. I hadn't left Ben's side since bringing him home. I watched his chest rise and fall with each shallow breath, listened to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, and traced the familiar contours of his face, the face I had been separated from for 3 long months. I lifted my hand to his cheek, gently caressing the area bruised from the jaw injury. He had lost so much weight that his cheekbones were more pronounced now. My heart ached for him. I would make sure he ate enough to regain his strength. Lowering my hand to the mark on his neck, I smiled softly. After everything, we were still together. Nothing could ever separate us again. Ben stirred, his brow furrowed as he inhaled sharply. I cradled his face in my hands. "It's okay. I've got you," I whispered. His eyes slowly fluttered open, revealing the cerulean blue I had missed so much. Recognition dawned, and he gasped softly. "J. Jackson," he whispered. "It's me, baby. You're safe now," I reassured him. His worry grew, tears brimming in his eyes as his breaths quickened. "No, the Alpha," he began, voice trembling. "He can't hurt you anymore." "I promise," I interrupted gently. His disbelief was written across his face as tears rolled down his cheeks. "You come for us," he murmured, panic returning. "Ben, baby. I'm the Alpha now," I said firmly. His eyes widened, disbelief and relief mingling. His panic slowly ebbed, replaced by a stunned silence. "How?" he stammered. I kissed his hand. "I took care of it," I said simply. But where is he? He'll come back, Jackson, Ben whispered. My heart clenched at his fear. I wanted to shield him from the harsh details but knew he needed to understand the danger was gone. I leaned in, cupping his face gently. He's gone, Ben, I said softly, keeping my voice calm and steady. His eyes widened, disbelief etching his features. Are you sure? He asked quietly, his voice barely audible. I pressed my forehead to his, holding the back of his neck gently. I let our bond do the work, showing him through memory and emotion that he was safe. He saw it. The threat neutralized, the danger ended. Ben gasped and then broke down, wrapping his arms around me as I held him close. These were not tears of fear, but of relief. It's over, he whispered between sobs. It's over. You're safe now. No one can hurt you again, I assured him, holding him gently, mindful of his injuries. I ran my fingers through his hair, rubbed his back, and let him cry as long as he needed. After a while, his tears subsided. I brushed a strand of hair from his forehead and whispered, I love you so much, my sweet mate. Nothing will ever take you away from me. I love you too, Jackson, he said with a weak, grateful smile. A knock at the door drew our attention. Dr. Green entered with a warm smile. Oh, Ben, you're awake, he said, moving closer to check the monitors. How are you feeling? Any pain? I'm a little sore, Ben admitted quietly. I'll help with that, Dr. Green said kindly. You do have a broken wrist and 2 fractured ribs, but we'll help you heal. You'll be back to full strength before you know it. Ben nodded, a small smile forming. The doctor returned shortly with medicine, administering it slowly through Ben's fore. Relief washed over him as the medication took effect. Rest if you need to, I told him softly, brushing his hair back. I'll be right here. I'm not leaving you. Ben leaned into my touch, letting the tension drain from his body. I pressed a gentle kiss to his forehead as he closed his eyes, finally drifting into a peaceful sleep. Chapter 22. Benjamin's POV. I awoke from a deep, dreamless sleep to the soft, hushed voices of my mate and someone else. How is he now? Is he all right? He is. I've just kept him at home so he's safe, came the quiet reply, though I couldn't immediately place the voice. A sigh followed. I'm glad he's okay, Jackson said. How long will the doctor keep Ben here? He told me today that he's improving. He just needs to heal from the injuries and regain his strength. He's still a little dehydrated, so he'll need the 4 fluids a bit longer. Silence followed Jackson's response. This wasn't your fault, Jackson, the other voice added finally. My only regret is not stopping him sooner. Ben shouldn't have had to suffer. It's over now. That's what matters. You got to him in time and he's safe. I slowly opened my eyes, blinking to adjust to the light. Jackson and Liam were standing by the door. Jackson must have sensed I was awake because he immediately turned toward me and hurried to my side. Good morning, baby, he whispered, pressing a soft kiss to my forehead. I shifted upright and felt a sharp twinge in my side, making me wince and draw in a quick breath. What hurts? Jackson asked, concern in his voice. I placed my hand gently on my side. Right here, I whispered, waiting for the ache to pass. That's your fractures. I'll have the doctor give you something for it, okay? No, I'm fine, I reassured him. It's easing now. He raised an eyebrow, silently questioning me, but I smiled. Really? I'm fine. He hesitated for a moment before nodding. Liam brought us breakfast, Jackson said. I glanced toward the door and smiled at him. Thank you, Liam, I said. Not a problem, he replied softly. Just focus on getting better, all right? I nodded in response. Jackson, I'll hang around for a little while in case you need anything, Liam added. Jackson nodded. Thanks again, Liam, Jackson said. Liam smiled at both of us and left the room. Jackson set the wooden tray Liam had brought on the nightstand. 2 plates of avocado toast and scrambled eggs sat neatly, the bright green and yellow colors making my mouth water. I'll help you eat, okay? Jackson offered. I can manage with one arm, I chuckled. Let me take care of you, baby, he said. He picked up a fork, scooped some eggs, and fed me a bite. The taste was incredible, even better than I remembered. The avocado toast followed, and I savored each bite. After a few bites, I leaned back and sighed. "Oh, I'm so full," I groaned. Jackson moved the tray aside. "Dr. Green said it might take time for your body to adjust to normal meals," he said softly. "How about resting in our bedroom instead of here?" I raised an eyebrow. "Our bedroom?" I asked. "Well, it's our bedroom now," he said with a small smile. He sent a quick text on his phone, and moments later, Liam appeared at the door. "At your service," Liam said, bowing slightly. I giggled. Jackson gently lifted me from the bed while Liam wheeled the 4-pole beside us. I rested my head against Jackson's chest, listening to his comforting heartbeat as we walked quietly to the bedroom. "You know, Liam gave his blood for your transfusion," Jackson said quietly. I looked up in surprise. "Thank you," I murmured. "Don't mention it, short stuff," he replied with a smile. We reached the bedroom, and Jackson laid me on the large bed. It felt like lying on a cloud, so much more comfortable than the bed in the doctor's wing. Liam set the 4-pole in place and quietly left, exchanging a brief glance with Jackson before stepping out. Jackson returned to my side and sat down. "What was that about?" I asked. "Ben, there's something you need to know," he said, his tone serious. "What is it?" I asked, apprehensive but curious. "My father, he took a girl and wanted us to be forced mates. I didn't know her, and he had no right, but he thought it would give him control. He was delusional," Jackson explained. I frowned, surprised. "Why tell me this now?" I asked softly. "Because I need you to understand why I did what I did to get to you," Jackson continued. "I couldn't let him hurt you. Survival was the only choice. I'm so sorry, Ben." I reached up and touched his cheek. "It's okay, Jackson. You did what you had to do," I said softly, pressing my forehead to his. "I know, honey. I know," he whispered. I kissed him gently. We survived together. A knock at the door drew our attention. Jackson opened it to find Eleanor standing there, holding her phone. "Ben, dear, how are you feeling?" she asked. "I'm all right," I smiled. She returned the smile and patted my leg. "We had to put your arm in a sling for now. Joseph is bringing the supplies to the clinic. Any color preference?" "Black would be fine," I answered. She nodded and spoke into her phone briefly before handing a small bottle of medicine to Jackson. "This is for the pain, darling. No more than one every 12 hours, she instructed. I nodded in thanks. "Are you in pain?" Jackson asked, his gray eyes filled with concern. "I ache a little," I admitted. Jackson returned moments later with a glass of water and the pill. I swallowed it carefully, and he watched over me like I was fragile. I thought of August and smiled. "I want to meet her," I said softly. Jackson looked surprised. "She's here," he said gently. "Can I meet her?" "Of course, baby. If that's what you want," he replied, smiling warmly. Chapter 23. Jackson's POV. Later that day, Dr. Green came by to remove Ben's 4 and set a cast on his arm. He needed to make sure the bone healed correctly. I stayed beside Ben, holding him gently as the doctor worked. Ben flinched slightly as the bone was set, his eyes watering with the discomfort. I rubbed his shoulder and pressed a soft kiss to his head to comfort him. Once the cast was on, the doctor wrapped it carefully in black material. I let out a quiet sigh of relief. I hated seeing my mate in pain. Dr. Green pulled a small tube from his bag and handed it to Ben. "You can apply this ointment to your bruises and minor wounds to help them heal faster," he said. Then he added, "These are waterproof covers for your cast when you need them." "Thank you, Dr. Green," I said softly. "Please, call me Joseph," he replied with a smile. We nodded, and he packed up his things before leaving the room. I turned to Ben. "How about a nice, warm bath to help you relax?" His face brightened immediately. "Yes, please," he said with a small nod. I went to the bathroom and ran the water in the large bathtub, testing it to make sure it was the perfect temperature. Then I went to the walk-in closet to grab a bathrobe, a soft t-shirt, and sweatpants for him. I set everything neatly in the bathroom and returned to Ben, who was sitting on the edge of the bed. I helped him put one of the plastic covers over his cast. He wobbled slightly as he tried to stand. I can carry you, love, I offered, but he shook his head with a small, melancholic smile. I want to get used to walking again, he said. I simply nodded and held out my hand. He gripped it tightly, and together we slowly walked toward the bath. He stumbled a little, but I stayed close, ready to support him. When we reached the tub, I turned off the water and smiled at him. Do you need help with your clothes? I asked. He nodded, and I helped him carefully remove what he was wearing. The clothes were a little loose on him, and I got my first clear look at his body. He was thin and bruised from his ordeal, and I felt a pang of protectiveness. I gently examined his bruises and small cuts, keeping my tone calm. What happened to cause these? I whispered softly. Ben looked down, cheeks flushing. He hurt me, he murmured quietly. I held back a surge of anger, reminding myself that it was over and that I had protected him. Let me help you with the rest, I said gently, guiding him into the bath. He settled into the warm water, closing his eyes with a small sigh of relief. I knelt beside the tub, washing him carefully, taking care around the tender areas. I massaged shampoo into his soft, chestnut curls, helping him relax even more. His small sighs of comfort made my chest ache with affection. I finished by rinsing his hair and helping him out of the bath, wrapping him in a fluffy bathrobe and drying his hair. He looked so small and adorable, and his quiet giggles made my heart swell. I pressed a soft kiss to his lips. Thank you for helping me, he whispered. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, I replied, holding his hand as we walked back to the bedroom. I applied the ointment Joseph had brought to each bruise and small cut, taking care with every touch. Once I had finished, I helped him into fresh clothes. He smiled up at me. What about meeting her tomorrow? He asked softly. You mean Beth? That's fine, I said with a smile. He relaxed onto the bed, and I settled beside him, pulling the covers over us. He snuggled close, and I held him gently, unwilling to let go. His breaths evened out, a smooth rhythm that told me he was finally at peace. I stayed awake a little longer, watching him. After some time, I realized I had drifted off too, holding my mate safely in my arms. Chapter 24. Benjamin's POV. Early that morning, Jackson and I walked down the stairs together. I had woken up about 30 minutes earlier, my head resting on his chest. I felt safe there, protected by my alpha mate, as if no one could reach me without going through him first. He had promised that we would find the girl after breakfast, which he insisted I eat. I wasn't very hungry. I had grown used to skipping meals, but I tried to eat as much as I could to make him happy. As we entered the kitchen, someone was sitting at the island. Before I could get a clear look, Jackson stepped in front of me. Beth, he said hesitantly. I apologize if I scared you the other day. Beth, could this really be her? I peeked around Jackson and froze. It was her. Childhood memories flooded my mind, running and playing together at the orphanage, leaning on each other during lonely times, laughing over small adventures. We had been inseparable, and her presence now felt comforting in a way I hadn't realized I needed. Beth, I said softly. Her eyes shifted from Jackson to me, widening in recognition. Ben, she exclaimed, and before I could react, she rushed forward. We collided in a careful hug, mindful of my arm cast. Tears stung my eyes at this unexpected reunion. She felt the same. I thought I'd never see you again, I whispered. She let out a laugh, tinged with emotion. My adoptive parents were in another pack, but I moved back when I turned 18. I was living alone until her voice trailed off. I didn't need her to finish, I understood. But I'm so sorry, I murmured, feeling the weight of what she'd endured. No. Look at you, Ben. Are you okay? She asked gently. I am, now that I'm with my mate again, I said, glancing at Jackson, who looked curious but understanding. Beth and I knew each other as kids. We were in the same orphanage, I explained. Jackson's face lit up in comprehension, a small grin forming. I looked down at Beth's loose shirt, realizing there was more I didn't yet know. My heart ached with complex emotions, not only for the hardships we'd survived, but for the realities Beth had faced. She hadn't chosen this either, and I felt grateful she was here, alive, even under these circumstances. Ben, she started, but I cut her off with a soft smile. It's okay. I'm just glad we made it out alive. I'm sorry you were forced into this. She embraced me again, and I returned the hug willingly, appreciating the warmth and comfort she brought. Jackson gave us some privacy while he spoke with Liam, who had just arrived. I noticed Liam glance at Beth and me, puzzled by our obvious closeness. Jackson chuckled and explained. Apparently they were childhood friends. Well, I guess that worked out, Liam muttered, still looking slightly bemused. Jackson turned serious. I want to hire movers. You're not staying in the Alpha's mansion? Liam asked. I am, Jackson said, but I want everything tied to my father gone. I want new furniture, new paint, new decor, nothing that reminds us of him. Ben deserves a home free of that shadow. Over the following weeks, Jackson made our home truly ours. He let me choose furniture, paint, and decorations. I settled on hunter green walls and warm honey-colored oak floors. The decor was modern, vibrant, and reflected our tastes rather than the cold, vintage atmosphere my father had imposed. Some rooms remained untouched due to the home's size, but it didn't matter, we only used what we needed. I wanted to visit the orphanage to see Miss Tolly, but Jackson insisted I heal first. Once ready, we went together, and Beth accompanied us to surprise her. Miss Tolly's eyes widened at first when she saw Jackson, but then softened as she noticed me. She rushed forward, pulling me into a warm hug and doing the same for Beth. She had clearly been worried about me, and I reassured her that I was okay. Jackson introduced himself as my mate, and though she was still cautious, she invited us in for tea. I smiled warmly, hoping to ease her worries about Jackson. After the visit, I shared with Jackson my concern for Miss Tolly and the children she cared for. He promised we could hire help to support her, which made me feel relieved. The woman had been very dear to me as a child, and seeing Jackson honor that made me appreciate him even more. Jackson also arranged for Joseph and Eleanor to stay nearby while I continued to recover. With his support, my bruises began to fade, my wounds healed, and my strength slowly returned. Nightmares still came, usually centered around my father, but Jackson was always there to comfort me, ensuring I felt safe. Though the road to full recovery was slow, I was grateful. I was alive, cared for, and surrounded by those who loved me, and most importantly, I had Jackson by my side. Chapter 25. Jackson's POV. And then he ran right into me, and my bread spilled all over the pavement. Ben exclaimed, his voice filled with amusement. The laughter that followed, from Ben, Beth, and Luca, was melodic to my ears. Liam, standing beside me, nearly blanched at the noise. Today, Liam had brought Luca over to meet Ben and me properly. Ben immediately clicked with Luca, and it was comforting to see him connecting with good friends. Luca seemed a little shy around me, but I understood why. Becoming Alpha changed the way many people perceived me. Some were intimidated by my presence alone. Others had seen me act decisively during dangerous situations. Luca had been safely away from all of that, and I was grateful for it. Liam and Luca had arrived holding hands, a small but heartwarming detail. I noticed matching marks on them similar to those on Ben and me, and it made me smile. It was good to know my friends could find happiness in the same way Ben brought joy to my life. I wondered, not unkindly, how long it would be before we saw little ones joining our circle. Though Ben had healed remarkably well, bruises faded, cast removed, wounds fully closed, I hadn't pushed him in romantic ways. He occasionally tried to get closer, but I always pulled back if it got too intense. I didn't want to risk overwhelming him. He was still fragile, still carrying the weight of past trauma. Nightmares and panic attacks reminded me how careful I needed to be. These light-hearted moments were precious, and I cherished them. It also warmed me to see Beth visiting happily with Ben and Luca. Though I still felt guilty about the challenges she'd endured, I made sure she was comfortable and well taken care of. Her baby bump was starting to show, and Joseph assured us it was a healthy baby boy. Ben had insisted she move to a guest room near our bedroom, which I had helped arrange. I often caught Ben and Beth chatting about names, clothes, and nursery items, laughing quietly together. When he felt the baby kick, His face lit up with a smile I couldn't help but adore. "How's the nursery coming along?" Liam's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. "I've got the walls painted. Just need to assemble the furniture," I replied. After a pause, I smirked. "Why don't you make yourself useful while you're here?" "Lead the way," he said with a grin. We walked upstairs, the echoes of laughter from downstairs following us. The nursery smelled of fresh paint, the blue walls bright and cheerful. "What have we got?" Liam asked. "A changing table and a crib. Everything else will come together once we assemble it," I said. We began opening the crib box, scattering pieces across the floor, bolts, screws, and instruction sheets. I started assembling the side panel while Liam followed instructions and handed me the correct pieces. When it was time to attach the end panels, I noticed his was upside down. "Your end piece is upside down," I pointed out, chuckling. "How can you tell?" he asked. "The bottom is thicker," I explained. His eyes widened and we both laughed. We tried to separate the pieces, tugging with all our strength. Suddenly, it came apart with a little more force than expected, and I stumbled backward, landing on the floor with a thump. Liam's laughter erupted instantly. He was doubled over, clutching his stomach. His joy was infectious, and soon I was laughing too. "Here, let me help you up," he said between chuckles, holding out a hand. I grabbed it, and in a playful tug, he ended up on the floor beside me, still laughing uncontrollably. Eventually, our laughter subsided. I looked at Liam, and the sunlight streaming through the windows caught his features in a way I hadn't noticed before. His blue eyes seemed to hold hints of violet in the light, his nose dotted with freckles, and his hair shone golden like honey. I blinked, suddenly seeing my best friend in a new light. The sound of laughter from the doorway pulled me back. Beth and Luca were giggling, with Ben holding back his own laughter beside them. "What happened here?" Ben asked. "This guy couldn't put together a crib," I muttered with a grin. Liam and I got the crib assembled without further mishap, and the room slowly started to feel like home. Ben, Beth, and Luca soon wandered off, still giggling together. I watched them with a smile. Moments like these, seeing Ben happy and carefree, reminded me why all the effort, care, and patience were worth it. Chapter 26. Benjamin's POV. Things were good. Our home had been transformed into a place that felt truly ours. Beth, Luca, and I had grown very close, and Jackson was settling into his role as Alpha remarkably well. I was still adjusting to being Luna, but I was doing my best. Earlier that day, I had gotten the traditional industrial ear piercing that marked me as Luna, a symbol of respect and leadership. Jackson held my hand throughout the process, and though it stung slightly, it wasn't as painful as I expected. That evening, Jackson and I were relaxing in our living area, watching a movie. We lounged on the big sectional, and I rested my head against his chest, his fingers lightly tracing patterns along my back. Our legs were tangled, and the warmth of his body made me feel safe and cherished. On the screen, a couple kissed in the rain, and a pang of longing ran through me. I looked up at Jackson, marveling at the golden tone of his skin, the gentle curve of his lips, and the calm strength in his presence. I didn't notice when a tear rolled down my cheek, but Jackson did. He brushed it away gently with his thumb. "What's wrong, my love?" he asked softly. His voice alone sent a shiver down my spine. I leaned up and kissed him, pouring all my emotion into the gesture. He was surprised at first but responded immediately, his hand resting on the side of my face as our lips met. The kiss was tender, full of warmth and reassurance. I want to feel close to you," I admitted after pulling back slightly. Jackson smiled softly and held me tighter. "I know, but I feel the same way. I'll always be gentle with you." We spent the rest of the evening wrapped in each other's arms, talking, laughing quietly, and sharing small touches that spoke volumes. No words were needed to convey our love. It was in every glance, every heartbeat, every brush of fingers against skin. At one point, I rested my head on his chest again, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "I missed this," I whispered. "So did I," he murmured, pressing a gentle kiss to my forehead. "You're safe with me always." We stayed like that long after the movie ended, holding each other, sharing whispered conversations, and enjoying the comfort of being together. Eventually, exhaustion crept in. Jackson lifted me carefully into his arms, carrying me to our bedroom. I closed my eyes, trusting him completely, and allowed myself to drift off to sleep in his embrace. It was perfect, the kind of intimacy that didn't need words or actions, just the presence of someone who loved you completely. Chapter 27. Benjamin's POV. I jolted awake, my chest heaving, my body trembling. The echoes of a nightmare still clung to me, images of fear and pain that made my heart race. Jackson stirred beside me, his strong presence immediately grounding me. "Ben? Are you awake?" he asked softly, his voice full of concern. I shook my head, trying to shake off the lingering terror. It was just a dream," I whispered, my voice shaky. He reached out, pulling me close into his arms. "You're safe, baby. I'm right here. Nothing can hurt you." I buried my face in his chest, letting the steady beat of his heart calm me. Memories of the nightmare still made my stomach twist, but the warmth of his embrace reminded me that I was no longer alone. I was with my mate, my alpha. I felt so helpless, I admitted, my voice muffled against his shirt. It felt so real. Jackson rubbed my back gently, his touch soothing. "I know, love. Nightmares are powerful, but they aren't real. You're here with me. Always." I closed my eyes, letting the tension drain from my body as he held me. "I'm sorry I woke you, or made you worry." He shook his head, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. "You don't need to apologize for being scared. I love you, Ben. That's all that matters." I sniffled and whispered, "I love you too, Jackson." He hugged me tighter, his warmth and reassurance filling the spaces the nightmare had left behind. Slowly, my breathing steadied, my body relaxed, and the terror began to fade. "I'm not going anywhere," he murmured into my hair. "I've got you always." For the first time since waking, a small smile tugged at my lips. With Jackson holding me close, I could finally believe that the nightmare was over, and that the present, right here in his arms, was real. Chapter 28. Jackson's POV. It had been weeks since the nightmare. Ben was doing well. He was healing, both physically and emotionally. I couldn't have been prouder of him. He had endured so much, yet he still managed to smile. I never wanted to lose my mate. I had secretly picked out a ring, with only Liam helping me choose it. Luca might have known, but even if he did, I trusted him to keep it a secret. He wouldn't ruin this for Ben. I had been waiting for the perfect moment to propose when I learned a geomagnetic storm was forecast for tomorrow night. The northern lights would be visible, a breathtaking sky full of colors. I wanted to propose under that magic. I found Ben sitting with Beth in front of the fireplace, wrapped in a cozy blanket, while he held his hands on her belly, feeling the baby kick. I leaned over the couch and kissed the top of his head. "Hey, baby," I whispered, smiling at Beth. "Jax," Ben exclaimed, pressing a chaste kiss to my lips. "How would you like to go camping?" I asked. "Camping? When?" "Tomorrow night. I want to take you to see the northern lights." Ben's eyes widened. "The northern lights?" I thought it'd be magical. "Beth, would that be all right?" I asked. "Of course. I'll be fine with Luca and Liam here. You two should have fun." "Don't worry about me," she said with a smile, her excitement for us matching mine. Ben spent the rest of the day buzzing with excitement, helping me pack our supplies. By bedtime, he could hardly contain himself. I held him close, calming him with gentle kisses, imagining that within 24 hours, we'd be engaged. The next morning, I woke to Ben's curls brushing my face. "Good morning, sweetheart," I whispered. He murmured, still sleepy. "Shower?" I asked. He nodded. I scooped him up in a bridal carry, and we stepped into the warm shower together. We laughed and talked, letting the hot water wash away the chill of the winter morning. I traced my hands along his shoulders and back, grateful for every scar and mark that reminded me of his strength and survival. After breakfast with Beth, Luca, and Liam, we set out for the woods. Ben's excitement was contagious as we hiked, bundled up against the cold, carrying our backpacks and camping gear. The higher we climbed, the more snow surrounded us. Finally, we reached the perfect spot. I quickly set up the tent while Ben arranged blankets and pillows inside, adding twinkling battery-powered fairy lights that made the space cozy and magical. "It looks amazing, baby," I told him, grinning. "You've got the fire going?" he asked, eyes shining. "Of course. And Maurice too," I replied, chuckling at his enthusiasm. We sat together by the fire, roasting marshmallows, feeding each other bites, and laughing at our messy but sweet treats. Then Ben's attention was drawn to the sky. "The lights!" he gasped, pulling out his phone to capture the dancing greens and purples overhead. I knelt on one knee behind him, holding the ring. "Jackson, do you?" he started, but froze when he turned to see me. Tears formed in his eyes. "As my mate, you've made my life brighter than I could have ever imagined. I fall in love with you more every day, and I can't imagine a world without you. Benjamin Sterling, will you marry me?" Ben gasped, his hands flying to his mouth. Yes, I will marry you, Jackson." He nodded eagerly, still trying to find his voice. I slipped the ring onto his finger, stood, and spun him around, laughing and kissing him as he giggled between happy tears. "You mean everything to me," I whispered. "I love you so much." "I love you too, Jackson," he replied softly. We sat together in the tent, wrapped in blankets, holding each other close. Beneath the magical glow of the northern lights, we shared gentle kisses and whispered promises for the life we would build together. The world felt perfect in that moment, just the two of us, ready to start the next chapter of our lives. Chapter 29. Jackson's POV. Early in the morning, I blinked awake to see Ben holding up his hand, admiring his engagement ring. A smile spread across my face as memories of yesterday flooded back. I wrapped my arms around him and kissed the top of his head. "Good morning, fiancé," he whispered, making my heart swell. "Good morning, baby," I replied softly. Last night, the cold had kept us from our usual habit of sleeping without clothes, so Ben wore my shirt and pajama pants. I supposed my scent comforted him, and he liked wearing my clothes, even if they were far too big for him. Ben was eager to get home and show off his new ring. We dressed quickly, packed up, and began our hike back. He couldn't keep his eyes off the ring, occasionally stumbling over roots and rocks. I guided him gently each time, smiling as he chattered about weddings, marriage, and starting a family. His joy was contagious, and I felt equally excited, even if I tried to hide it. When we neared home, it was unusually quiet. We walked inside, shrugging off our coats and backpacks. "Where is everyone?" Ben murmured, a note of concern in his voice. Before I could answer, a blood-curdling scream echoed from the opposite side of the house. Our eyes met in shock. "Beth!" Ben shouted, bolting toward the sound, with me right behind him. The scream had come from the guest wing, Beth's wing. We ran, hearts racing, praying she was all right. Bursting through the doors, we were met by wide-eyed Liam. "Where have you been?" he asked, a mix of panic and relief in his voice. "Is Beth okay?" I demanded. "She's in labor. Has been for hours," he explained. "Why didn't you call?" I asked urgently. The geomagnetic storm disrupted the cell service. Liam replied. I hadn't even considered that possibility. "Where is she?" Ben asked. Liam pointed toward the room where the next scream came from. Ben ran past him and I followed closely. Inside, we found Beth supported by Luca, while Joseph and Eleanor prepared for the birth. Luca stepped aside as Ben and I approached. We each took one of Beth's hands, giving her comfort as she trembled with the intensity of labor. "Ben Jackson," she exclaimed, relief flooding her voice. "We're here," Ben whispered, brushing back her hair. "You're okay." "We've got you," I added, squeezing her hand. Joseph checked her progress, and I could see he was ready to guide her through the final stage. "We're almost there." "It's time to start pushing," Joseph said gently. Beth's eyes widened with panic. "You can do this." "We're right here with you," I reassured her. Slowly, her breathing steadied. On Joseph's cue, Beth pushed. Eleanor counted down, giving her brief rests in between. Ben brushed strands of hair from her face while I encouraged her with soft words. Just a little more, Joseph prompted. 1, 2, 3. And then, the moment we'd been waiting for, the cry of a newborn filled the room. Tears streamed down our faces as Eleanor handed the baby to Beth, who held him close, smiling through her exhaustion. Mason, she whispered softly, glancing at Ben and me. Mason Anthony. I was surprised to hear her choose my middle name for him. Ben's eyes met mine, wide and shimmering with tears. Mason Anthony, I repeated, smiling down at our son. Luna, we need you to step out for a moment, Joseph said gently. Eleanor handed me the baby, and Ben and I stepped out of the room. I cradled Mason in my arms, marveling at the tiny life before me. His eyes, already a striking gray, gazed into mine. My heart swelled with a love I had never known. I wanted to protect him, nurture him, and give him a life filled with safety, happiness, and love. I would never let him face the hardships I had endured. He would grow up in a world of care, not fear. I would guide him gently, teaching him strength, kindness, and the love of family. Mason Anthony, I whispered again, feeling the weight of responsibility and joy. My son, my heart, my future. Benjamin's POV. 6 months later. Are you ready? Luca asked, taking my hands in his. I smiled and nodded. Today was Jackson's and my wedding day. It was small, not because we didn't want everyone there, but because many pack members feared even speaking our names, let alone attending our ceremony. The 50 or so who did come were curious, drawn by the bond of the Alpha and his Luna. Luca and Liam linked arms and began their walk down the aisle ahead of me. They had gotten engaged a month earlier, and their love radiated with passion and joy. Once they reached the end, Liam took his place beside Jackson, and Luca stood opposite, ready to witness our union. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. As I walked, I noticed our guests. Miss Tolly was there with 8 children in tow. Every time they saw me, they shouted, Benji! Their adorable nickname for me. Jackson and I had hired a chef and a nanny for her, which helped me rest easier at night. She had hugged me tightly, tears streaming down her face, when I told her about the wedding. Though still a bit cautious about Jackson, she had expressed gratitude for how happy he made me. Beth sat in the front row, baby Mason giggling in her arms. I had become somewhat of a third parent for Mason, and it filled me with joy. We shared midnight feedings, diaper changes, and cuddles, and had agreed that the pack wouldn't know Mason's parentage. Jackson wanted to shield him from future responsibilities as Alpha. Soon, Beth and Mason would move into a home Jackson bought for them, but for now, we cherished every moment together. Vincent sat beside Beth, smiling. He had been supportive since he learned the truth about Jackson's father and the dangers we had faced. Joseph and Eleanor also attended, their presence a comforting reminder of the help and care they had given us. They had stayed far longer than expected, and we were forever grateful. I noticed the few pack members who had come to support us. Same-sex couples were increasingly accepted since Jackson became Alpha, a hopeful sign that Cyrus's old rules were fading. Seeing this made me smile. And then I saw him, my mate, my Alpha, my forever. Jackson's eyes were locked on mine, silver and shining, his smile widening as emotion overcame me. He had saved me, protected me, and loved me through everything. He wore a black suit that fit him perfectly, his presence strong and comforting. I wore a white suit with wisps of tulle trailing behind me, and we both wore the Alpha and Luna crowns, a tradition and a symbol of our bond. When I reached him, we joined hands, gazing into each other's eyes. Mr. Winston, the bakery owner and ordained officiant, began to speak. Family and friends, thank you for joining us today. We are here to unite Alpha Jackson and Luna Benjamin in marriage. My hands trembled as Jackson squeezed them gently, his reassuring smile grounding me. Do you, Benjamin, take Jackson to be your husband, to love, honor, and support him in joy and sorrow, in sickness and in health, for as long as you both shall live? I do, I whispered, tears brimming. Do you, Jackson, take Benjamin to be your husband, to love, honor, and support him in joy and sorrow, in sickness and in health, for as long as you both shall live? I do, Jackson replied, his voice deep and steady. Liam handed Jackson my wedding band, and Luca handed me his. A ring is an unbroken circle, representing infinity and your unending love. Benjamin, place the ring on Jackson's finger and repeat after me, Mr. Winston instructed. I give you this ring as a symbol of my love, pledging to love you today, tomorrow, always and forever, I repeated, sliding the band onto Jackson's finger. Jackson slid mine onto my hand, speaking the same vow, his voice warm and full of love. By the authority vested in me, I now pronounce Alpha Jackson and Luna Benjamin as married. You may kiss your spouse, Mr. Winston said with a smile. Jackson stepped forward, hand on my back, and dipped me into a tender kiss. I wrapped my arms around him, our hearts beating as one. Memories of our journey flashed before me. Our first meeting, our trials, the challenges we overcame, and the love that grew stronger with each day. I whispered against his chest, "You are my forever, my love, my everything." "And you are mine," he replied, holding me close. Our hands entwined, our hearts aligned, and in that moment, surrounded by love and family, we began our life together as husband and husband. Thanks for listening to today's BL story. If it made your heart skip a beat, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Only here on BL Stories, where love knows no limits.